What if some of the superfoods that you're eating are actually causing you or your kid harm? What if the healthiest foods that we think are awesome for our health in some people actually cause health problems? And in this case, I'm talking about spinach in particular. Spinach is an awesome food, right? We want to eat it in salads, we throw it in smoothies, whether you're gluten free, blah, 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 blah. Pretty much everyone likes spinach. And spinach is a fantastic food. It has so many health promoting properties for so many people. No question. Except if you happen to have gut integrity issues, so if you happen to have a leaky gut, if your gut is inflamed, if you happen to have an imbalance in candida, which usually goes along with leaky gut and all of the other issues, if you happen to have any of these things, you probably have a problem with oxalates. So oxalates are these compounds that are found in a lot of different things, spinach being the thing that has the most of the oxalates and is typically the food that a lot of people like to eat in abundance, which they should. Except in this case, if you happen to have this issue, oxalates, the way I look at them and the way I describe them to families, and this is a gross oversimplification to what is, but oxalates are basically like these little shards of glass. They're not totally, but if you can imagine them being shards of glass, and these shards of glass kind of penetrate your intestines, so they perpetuate inflammation because who wants glass in their tissue, right? So imagine these crystals, shards of glass, actually start hitting the gut, so they perpetuate inflammation. And one of the things that they typically do in doing this is they cause this weirdly broad, strange number of reactions to foods. And I've seen this in some of our families who have had the worst gut problems. They react to everything under the sun. We ultimately found oxalates to be one of their primary issues. It wasn't they were eating gluten or dairy because they were cutting those foods out, but they weren't getting better. And we found ridiculously high oxalate levels. And you can actually test this through Quest. You just do a random urinary oxalate level. Insurance typically covers it. And you can see where it is. A lot of these people have weird bladder issues. So they pee all the time and their bladder's just spazzing, right? And they get their urine tested. It's not a urinary tract infection, but they just can't stop peeing, or their pee is painful. These are oxalates, little glass crystals going into the bladder, causing the bladder to become irritated, going through the urethra, irritating the urethra. Sometimes people get kidney stones, but not always, because sometimes they're just clearing it out so the oxalates don't build up to get stones. So you get this weird array of gastrointestinal issues with multiple people having multiple food reactions that make zero sense. And that's one of the things that's really common. It doesn't make any sense. You do probiotics, you do this, you do that, nothing gets better. And what do all healthy people that are doing gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, whatever, what do they eat? Spinach. We all love spinach. So we eat lots of it. And then on top of that, when you have candida overgrowing, candida itself irritates the hell out of the intestines, and candida actually produces oxalates of its own. So you get this double, triple whammy that ultimately really messes up the system and causes an intense immune overactivation. Now, imagine the immune system going bonkers, the intestinal tract going bonkers, except the immune system, what does it do? It hits the brain, right? So you get this weird psychological phenomenon. There's actually a term for it, sickness behavior. You can look it up. It's very well defined in the literature. You get sickness behavior. The brain actually starts acting weird. You get anxiety. It's like an anxiety, depression kind of phenomenon. It's a little bit of both. Some of the kids are super, super irritable, but then they don't feel good. They're not terribly happy. Adults can have a very similar experience. And the other part of this is like a triple whammy. I mean, it's way more than a triple whammy, but the other main area that gets mucked up is the mitochondria. So you get these people weird intestinal issues. They're just not clear in their head. They're a little anxious. They're a little depressed. They can't remember, blah, blah, blah. And they're tired. They're just tired. They're not the most energetic of all people, for sure. Why? Oxalates are mitochondrial disruptors. They actually disrupt the mitochondria. The immune system also disrupts the mitochondria. So you get a double hit to the mitochondria. The mitochondria go south. And when they do, then adrenals go off and all kinds of other organ systems starts faltering in weird ways. when you test for it and you're like, oh, yeah, it's there. It's pretty high. And I've seen in some cases, like it's so high that it actually was shocking that they were doing as well as they were and they didn't have kidney stones. You get rid of the high oxalate foods, and there's lots of lists out there. You get rid of these high oxalate foods. You do probiotics. If candida is there, you treat the candida, do a few things to shore up the intestines. And it's incredible the change that happens. I've had families where they had so many food reactions. The mom's like, my God, I didn't know. I didn't know that my intestines can function this well. I had no idea. My immune issues are better. I'm not having as many allergies, or, some people have joint issues. So joint pain goes away. Other weird inflammatory responses go away. And the one thing that is so unique, especially for the kids, is all of a sudden they're happier. They're more energetic. They're more lively. That parents are like, yeah, his eyes are more clear. Why are their eyes more clear? Because the kid is happy. They finally feel well. And it is incredible to see the child who's tantruming, anxiety-ridden, can't focus, can't learn, has poor executive functioning, and a lot of these kids get tested up the wazoo with neuropsych, which is great, except neuropsychiatric evaluations don't pick up on oxalate issues. And you know what? Unfortunately, outside of the autism world, right now, most people don't understand that even oxalate issues are a problem, except they are in some cases. This is the kind of information we need all people to know, because this is way more common than we realize. I'd say at least if you or your family or your kid have a ton of gut issues and you happen to have a bladder problem where your kid is peeing way more often, they're complaining every now and then, it hurts, except it's not an infection, I'd say you've got at least a 50% chance of having oxalate issues. If you or your kid have a weird anxiety, depressive phenomenon and you're tired and you have any of these other issues, except sometimes the gut issues don't show, so it's not always obvious. The only thing that is sometimes obvious is a weird anxiety, depression, fatigue picture. And if that's there, it could be an oxalate issue, at least 25% chance. This is the kind of information we need all people to know. We need all families everywhere to know, like, oh, wow, maybe this is an oxalate issue. Maybe my kid doesn't have ADHD. Maybe they're not depressed. Maybe their system is faltering. Maybe they have shards of glass hitting every single which organ there is, causing all kinds of issues to arise. These are things that are so easily treatable when we know that the thing is there. When we leverage the right tools to make seemingly dramatic changes happen. These things are not miracles. These things aren't magical. This is basic physiology that's actually well known in the autism world. If you do a search for oxalates, you see tons of information come up in the autism world. Except this is information that's applicable to everyone. Chances are there's some of you adults out there that when you look at this, you're like, yeah, I got that. Ew, yeah, I got that. Oh, yeah, I got that. Well, if you have it, that probably means you have the oxalates. Test it, treat it, heal it. It is incredible what happens. And that kind of incredible thriving is what I want for all kids. And I hope you can help me get more of this information out there to make a lot of difference for a lot of kids and their families. Thank you for watching. This is Dr. K.